to be like fully transparent, I sometimes think I'm still figuring it out. A new scenario comes up where, challenges your experience or your past experience. Is it that I'm just like tweaking what I already do, or do I have to like learn a new approach?
The industry as a whole is pretty much evolving daily. And so how do you stay grounded? Med Device Boston is your go-to medtech sourcing and education expo, September 30th through October 1st at Boston's BCEC. Engineered to advance a next generation of medical device innovation, this event unites 200 plus suppliers, 1,500 plus attending professionals, and OEM decision makers in the number 3 medtech hub in the US. Explore everything from 3D printing and AI to materials, regulatory tech, and contract manufacturing, all under one roof. Visit meddeviceboston.com to register and plan your visit. Links in the show notes. Emily Ting, welcome to the Manufacturing Culture Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. We were just talking before I hit the record button. We've been planning this for, I don't know, 8-9 months at this point.
It happened at the beginning of the year, and
it did.
And now at the end of the year, we're finally making it happen.
Yeah, here we are on Halloween. 11 months and 8 months, 9 months later, getting ready to record this. So, super excited to have you here. I still go back to that moment and in the session at IMS last year, where you stopped the entire audience. You had a great moment in my session. So yeah, I remember that fondly. I've actually clipped that out from last year's recording because I love it so much. Anybody interested, anybody listening, send me a message or comment on the video that you want to see that moment from IMS last year, and I'll post it somewhere. Emily, you're a badass. You're a fun human. So we're gonna have a lot of fun today. I always like to start this off with, I have a new icebreaker. It's new-ish. And it's all about you, and it gives us a really good sense of who you are. So Emily, if your life were a movie, what genre would it be? Who would play you? And what's the opening scene?
It's, you said I'm a fun person, and I immediately thought, really? Because I was like, a movie about my life would probably be like, I don't know, or in my mind, quite boring. I don't know. It might be like pensive and reflective, like a movie that's meant to force like self-introspection in the viewer, or like a mixture of that with like something Scott Pilgrim versus the World-esque. I don't see like the world as my enemy or something like that, but something like that quirky Michael Cera kind of.
Yeah,
there was a moment like that in the 2010s, and then it died, and we've never seen it again.
So a quirky, pensive, Michael Cera-esque, like self-reflective movie.
Yeah, that's what I can come up with.
And who would play you?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, because I don't know if you saw Shogun, the series.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Loved it. So I would love to have NSOI play me, but might be, reaching for the stars there.
No. I think
she
that's
was amazing.
Perfect.
She was amazing in that.
I really, really loved that show.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading the book, and it was a great book, and usually TV series that follow the book isn't quite as good as the book, but that show was awesome.
It really was.
And
Yeah.
I think you nailed it with who would play you. All right. So what's the opening scene of this movie? Is it that moment in the 2010s that you were talking about, or is there something else?
Uh no. Yeah, probably something a quirky opening that you only saw in the 2010s and um yeah.
All right. I like it. I like it. See, now we have a better understanding of who you are. Um,
Hopefully.
Emily, what does culture mean to you? And not necessarily like that dictionary definition, right? But what
Yeah.
it means to you individually.
Yeah. In terms of like, especially in a professional setting, I think it's, you'll feel culture kind of in the air, so to
Mm,
speak, when when you're at work. Does it, make you feel like, um, ready to do what you set out to do? Or does it make you feel, like you're going to struggle on a mental or psychological level because it's just, a pressure that is oppressing you, so to
yeah,
speak. Um, and, I think everybody wants to have a culture where, people feel, you know, energized and motivated, hopefully.
yeah,
Or, like even not be daunted by something difficult. You want to be like brave enough to tackle it, not, cow down to um whatever you're facing.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Um, I love that definition. I love it because it's you, right? So let's talk more about Emily and Emily's journey. So, what drew you initially into the field? Was there something from your background that drew you into marketing and manufacturing in this intersection that you're in?
Yeah, I had, done internships when I was in college that kind of, related to the tactical side of marketing, like doing social media and stuff like that. So, you know, I already thought it would be, a fun profession to be in. So I was looking for a marketing role, and I think, the big, differentiator was that I was, um pretty fluent in Japanese, like business level proficiency. I had studied it for 8 years,
Wow.
um, and through a friend of my dad's, I found my current company, CCS America, which is a Japanese or the U.S. subsidiary of a Japanese global machine vision lighting company, and
Yeah.
they weren't looking for a marketer at the time, but it's rare to find somebody who has, English and Japanese proficiency of that level. So I think they were like, let's bring her on board and like see what happens, so to speak. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so from there, they like hired me so that they could, send me to work or, trade in Japan because visa paperwork is easier when you're already hired in, the company's network. So
Yeah.
yeah, then I spent, 3 years working in their head office in Japan, which was definitely like its own cultural ecosystem before, coming back to do marketing with a focus on the Americas.
Got it. Awesome. This episode might actually come out when I'm in Japan. I'll be in
Awesome.
Japan the first week of December at
Yeah.
IREX. Um, so what tips, and this I didn't know we were going to talk about this, but what tips can you give me as far as business culture and best practices when I'm in Japan, conducting interviews at booths and networking and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, you're lucky you have like the foreigner's pass or like the very obvious foreigner's pass. I think, sometimes I wondered if even if people knew I was a foreigner, they like maybe unconsciously expected me to follow certain cultural practices. And in Japan, there's very, specific cultural practices that it was funny. I was even having a talk with my coworkers about this of like it matters, where you stand in the elevator or where you sit, like if in the car, if you're traveling as a group.
Interesting.
Business card exchanges is a whole, process. There's, manners to that. And, you know, I don't think you'll have to worry about that once you go there, so to speak. Other tips. Let's see. Japan, I think, is very, big on, identity protection right now, especially in the digital age. So you'll
Yeah.
probably be expected to like, make sure people's faces are blurred out, even if they're just, passing by the booth.
Okay.
Things like that. If you don't have their like express consent, then to be filmed, even if it's just like unintentional.
Yeah.
They like I think it's the common practice to just like, make sure you can't be identified. Which we don't have a problem about that here in the US.
No. No. Especially not in public forums, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're on a street or at a trade show, I mean, some trade shows here have more restrictive regulations as far as filming and whatnot. But public filming is very commonplace here, and that's something I'm learning about Japan is it's really not. And some of the booth interviews that I have set up for there, it's how do we position the camera and the guest to not be so typically when I film a booth interview, it's in front of signage and I'm capturing all the like hustle and bustle of the booth. And there it's where can I find a wall that
Is
it
as
might
private as possible.
that may or may not have their logo on it
Mm-hmm.
as far as branding is concerned, but so I don't pick up anybody walking by. I mean, it's
Exactly.
very very regimented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, enough about me and my travels and going to Japan. How did that experience in Japan shape your experiences that you live now in the US?
Um, yeah, I think, there wasn't necessarily a manual of like who to ask for what, or how to get what you want from whoever
Yeah,
it is that can like give you that access or permission, whatever it is you need to do. Um, and in Japan, or I feel like it's better. I have a better sense of it now of like who I can go to, um, within our US office or even, back in the Japan office. Like sometimes it's about um, choosing the right messenger, even
sure.
instead of doing it yourself. Because they, maybe whether it's their authority or how they can communicate it to the person who will actually, grant permission. They're, more effective than just me trying to take care of everything myself, which is, something not intuitive to me. I'm like very hands-on in general. And it's like if it, as long as it's not, outside of my abilities, then I tend to do it by myself.
Yeah, I get that. So was there like, I mean, obviously there's a massive cultural difference between working in Japan and working in the US. Um, what are, I mean, give us some pros and cons of both, and what kind of people succeed? Maybe is a better question in the Japanese culture versus the US culture, and vice versa.
Uh, yeah, my experience might be a bit unusual. Like in both settings, I was involved in like a marketing team that had like just been formed essentially, or was like, you know, new and basically um like the world was uh our oyster, so to speak, or we would have to make the decisions of like what was
Yeah.
going to happen. And back then, the way it was structured, like a lot of the key members were, from overseas, and I was just like a part-time marketer helping out there. Because there was, training I had to do, but also they knew I wanted to do marketing when I went back. So they allowed me to, help the global marketing team there, or at the time when
Yeah.
they were, starting to um, you know, build a global newsletter and like build their social media following and all that stuff. Um, and I think in both settings, you realize how important it is to like be local, or, like you have to physically be um, in the market, or even like even in the office. I think it would, part of the challenge was that, so many people were overseas, and it would have maybe um communication would have been easier for sure if, they like the senior members could, walk over to talk to
Oh,
another
sure.
senior member, or understand like how to, you know, navigate the Japanese office hierarchy by actually being in it, because that is also very regimented, is the organizational hierarchy.
Yes.
Um, but so yeah, it's a tricky balance, right? Because how do you like be in the space where the work is actually happening, but also being, in the space of your actual, customers market, where it's easier for me now because I'm, in the market and the office is here
Yeah.
in the US, but it was a lot trickier back then when you could be in the office, but, how do you market to basically the rest of the world aside from Japan?
Yeah.
It, I, you know, in my 3 years there, I don't think it ever like fully matured into that, like, um, into where like, we fully understood like how to market to each region, and because they were all so different, and they all deserved their own strategy.
Yeah. That makes total sense. And I mean, you've on LinkedIn at least, you've talked about like being a a writer who translates like deeply technical concepts for sometimes non-technical audiences, and is that as big of a challenge as I'm imagining it would be?
Yeah, it was it's definitely a challenge in terms of, there's not just, highly technical language in terms of just like physics or whatever, but as somebody who like didn't come from manufacturing, there's a lot of like lingo and jargon
Sure.
um that, in Japanese it was translated a certain way, and once I have to like translate it back into English, I'm like, is that a word? I've never heard before, but it's just like, it's so unique to the manufacturing industry where, somebody who's, grown up in it would probably say like, yeah, that, of course, that's like in my, that's been in my vocabulary since I was 8 or something. And for me, it's just like, I'm hearing this word for the first time and I'm just like, I'm pretty sure this isn't made up, but I need to double check and make sure. So,
So do
um,
you have like a, pardon me, do you have like a English to manufacturing dictionary the way some people would have like an English to Japanese dictionary?
Uh, not quite. Speaking of LinkedIn, there was, I wrote recently about how I had like finished translating this super technical blog series that was kind of like buried in our Japanese website for a long time. And there were like what made it easier was our headquarters had given me like, their manual, so to speak, of, this is what we call it in Japanese, and this is, how we translate it in English, and just like, all right, we'll just go with that. um, don't question it. Or, there was also like um, a nice summary of like certain definitions, and that explained like, oh, this is the formula used to derive this super technical physics concept, and this is what we call it in English and Japanese. So resources like that really helped.
Sure. Absolutely. I get that. Have you, has there been a moment in your career at CCS Americas and when you were in Japan where you felt over your head, and like you were just like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here?
Definitely there were, many times, and maybe it wasn't like, what am I doing here, but like,
Okay.
you know, where it's about like direction, right? Where do I want to go? Is it up, like for this particular scenario, is it up to me to just to decide where
Sure.
I go, or is it, my boss's decision, or is it like a mix of both? And how do you figure that out ultimately?
Yeah, I get that. Um, Another thing that I picked up on your LinkedIn was you well, leadership asking for an ROI without setting clear goals, and this kind of goes to what we talked about at IMS last year a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And how do you navigate that?
Uh, to be like fully transparent, I sometimes think I'm still figuring it out.
Okay,
Because sometimes, or you think you got the hang of it, but suddenly there's, a new scenario comes up where you might have to like that, challenges your experience or your past experience, or and like forces you to figure out, okay, like, is it that I'm just like tweaking what I already do, or do I have to like learn a new approach because the situation is like changed so much
sure.
from the last time.
Yeah, and so in your experience, what's the biggest challenge in getting leadership, engineers, and marketing all on the same page? Because you have to kind of be that conduit between those three, right? So how do you get them all on the same page or speaking the same language?
Yeah, there's one of the things that you know makes it rewarding but also difficult is like sometimes they just have to like be in it to understand, like, you know there's times where like we said we're going to do something, and there's like some general skepticism about like what the ROI will be, or because there's like a look at short term
Mm,
value or short term return. But sometimes like being in it and just oh, I I see it, I understand like what marketing was trying to accomplish by doing this thing,
sure.
um and then they buy into it, and that has happened several times. It's just like you have to believe in us a bit, or in to our team's credit, I think as the years go by, they've been more like you know um open to believing in us, or giving us a fair chance, and hopefully we've done well in returning that in kind.
Sure. Awesome. Awesome. Um, and so how has your perception of what good marketing is changed over time, right? Because you've spent years in Japan, you've spent years here. Has your perception of what good is in terms of marketing changed over the years?
Yeah, I think one of the, you know, a big moment while I was in Japan kind of came around when COVID was happening because I was working there while COVID was happening. And up until then, I, kind of been managing like the tactical execution of things on behalf of, the senior members who were doing all the strategy and stuff. And then, um, you know, they ended up leaving the company and it was, I was just like, okay, where do I go from here? What am I supposed to do? And that led to me like studying more about marketing. And thankfully there was like, uh, a renaissance of sorts happening on LinkedIn where a lot of
Yeah.
people were, use on the platform just talking more about like how marketing is so much more than just like posting on, LinkedIn or
Yeah.
Instagram or whatever. It's like, you know, how do you understand the customer and, how can you ensure that you are showing yourself um in a
Yeah.
compelling way where they spend their time, which is not always as straightforward as, we met them at their booth. Um, it might be, they were at the booth, but they already knew us because their boss referred them, or,
Sure.
it's a lot more messy than
Yeah.
I think people like to, like to believe marketing is. I think it's quite straightforward, and there's a lot of detail that you can't you can't capture, and you kind of have to embrace the how uncomfortable that unknown is and still try and find a way to um discern like this is probably working or this is probably helping,
Yeah.
or it's more likely it's helping than hurting us to do this.
And I love that statement that's in there. It's messy, right? And I think that part of what marketing has evolved into is a less polished version of what it used to be, right? Because
Yeah.
we're the industry's pushing for, or marketing is pushing for more authenticity, especially as AI tools become more readily available. And part of that authenticity is we're all messy in some way, shape, or form. Is that like a valid thesis or a valid thought on my part, or am I just kind of crazy?
No,
Which is a reasonable answer too, Emily.
no, definitely. Um, Especially, both post COVID and like you said, now that AI is growing and you can, questioning what you see online all the time is, our
Yeah.
reality now. Um, it's great when, you show what's imperfect because AI is kind of like, can we get this as perfect as possible? And
Yeah.
authenticity is like, oh, appreciating or valuing the imperfection more.
You may be thinking, why do I need to attend Med Device Boston? Because you're going to do more than browse. You'll build your pipeline. You'll see, you'll touch, and you'll engage with innovative solutions from 200 plus suppliers while participating in hands-on workshops, expert-led education sessions, and curated matchmaking, all engineered to accelerate your projects. Whether you're solving design, regulatory, or production challenges, Med Device gives you key conversations, timely insights, and the tools to move forward. Med Device Boston. Advance your pipeline, advance your network, advance what's next.
Yeah, I'd agree. And AI's version of messy or imperfect is like six fingers, not like I have a zit on my forehead, or I forgot to shave today, right? That kind of imperfection that is more authentic. So in a industry, in a role that you have that's evolving all the time, right? Both what you do for CCS and the industry as a whole is pretty much evolving daily. And so how do you stay grounded? Because you are one of the most like grounded humans that I've met. And I do find you to be a lot of fun.
Oh,
But
thank
you're
you.
at the same time, you are very grounded. Like, and so how do you do that? How do you pull that off?
I'm not sure this is worth emulating, so to speak. I probably spend too much time like in my own head, and it. I probably need to get out of my head more, because I'm probably too harsh on myself inside my head. Um, yeah, staying grounded. I guess I try to remind myself of like there are some you know truths that stay constant no matter, you know, what what else is fluctuating.
Sure.
Like in terms of marketing, even like you have to understand your customer, you have to know how to get the insights you want out of your customer. And that's not always asking the question directly. It might be asking something more roundabout or that doesn't seem connected to it at all. Um,
Yeah.
because you'll kind of dig out from their subconsciousness what you actually want to know, what you need to know. um and so as long as you keep certain you know principles in mind, then you don't need to worry too much about like, oh, or you don't need to like hyper react or overreact of like, oh, we're in crisis or
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. Um, I like that. I like that a lot. Emily, what you and I originally kind of bonded over culture. Um, and so what is the culture like inside CCS Americas? And talk us through that evolution that you've seen over your time.
Yeah. I mean, we're a very small team, like less than 20 people total. But we're also all kind of, spread out. We have our office here in Massachusetts. We have one, right outside of Detroit, Michigan. And then, even then, some employees are like kind of, remote most of the time.
Sure.
Um, so that worked great in the pandemic era. Like
Yeah.
we didn't struggle to um or at the time they didn't struggle to adapt to that because that was already
Yeah.
kind of in place. But I think um after we got back to the new normal, so to speak,
Yeah.
it we had to uh figure out how to like connect with each other better now that we're more or less staying, you know, um, you know, um, apart from each other most of the time. And I think I don't know if every industry or sub industry in manufacturing saw this, but we really benefited during COVID. It was a positive for our industry, whereas like a certain other sectors, I think, the complete opposite happened and it was
Yeah.
really rough. But I think it kind of like, you know, put, manufacturing as a whole, our expectations kind of off balance. So once things kind of return to normal, it's like, how do we like, readjust what we can expect of ourselves And, don't, I think what we were struggling with in particular is like, um, maybe like what was expected seemed, you know, not like we didn't know how to achieve what was expected of us. And there's this thing in marketing that comes up, especially recently, where sometimes, the decision is no decision, where
Yeah.
you, you know, because you want to avoid the risk of like what happens when things go wrong. Um, Sometimes you just choose to stay in the status quo and do nothing because that feels safer.
Yep.
But we knew that, we couldn't, you know, we couldn't do that. We had to find a solution that worked for us to, you know, make a decision that's not no decision.
Yeah. And have you gotten to that point?
It's come a long way. I like genuinely since that time. I think, we're definitely like more aware of how we can like what everybody's doing at a given time and like how we can help each other. Like what can you expect the marketing team or the engineers or the sales team to be able to help you with what, and sometimes it's just like, is this even like technically possible?
Yes.
It's not an issue of attitude. It's just like this sort of thing can't be done with our current resources, or maybe it can be done with our current resources. So,
Yeah.
um, we have a better sense of that, and that helps. When some when you ask for something, you can. It's not always like people are saying no because they don't want to, which I think
Yeah.
is the default reaction that a lot of people can have is like, oh, they're just like brushing you off or whatever. But
Yes.
sometimes it's, um, there's a lot more to that. And once that gets cleared up, once you have that context, um, it, yeah, builds trust. And, going forward, then you're like, okay, I know what to ask. I can ask you for now.
Sure.
Um, so that has definitely been, um, one of the big changes, I think, um, and I think going back to what I said at the start, in somewhat, uh, in some, it's gotten better in terms of like you don't feel like you're you're in front of something insurmountable,
Yeah.
um, or at least you can like there's a way, and like you can sense there might be a way to make this happen, or like we have to face the challenge regardless of um how difficult it seems.
Yeah. I get that. Um, Emily, you're going back to IMS. I'm going back to IMS. Super excited to hang out with you in Austin again.
Exactly.
Um, what are you, and this year you're speaking,
Yeah.
which is super exciting. So anybody who wants more Emily Ting, come to Austin for IMS in, is it February? It's February, right?
I think it's March now.
Oh
March
man.
4th. You gotta fix your
March
calendar.
March 3rd through 6th. I have my spreadsheet open in a different tab with what shows I've got 10 shows between February and June that I'm going to,
Wow.
or 10 events, and IMS is one of them. So March 3rd through 6th in Austin. So anybody who wants more Emily Ting, come see us. Emily, what are you going to be speaking about?
I'm going to be talking about our distributor program, and it actually, I think, is also a good reflection of, you know, like good culture, because it was this particular project of redoing or like building a more comprehensive distributor benefits program, because we sell, or most of our business comes through distribution.
Sure.
And so it was a really great opportunity for like every like key department really to be involved and like get aligned and, you know, um, yeah, work together to make this successful.
Yeah,
Because everybody had, a stake with it, in it, and it came from, our leadership, really, did well in like taking the initiative.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so I am looking forward to it, and hopefully, if you sell through distribution too, you get some inspiration on what you can implement in your own company.
Well, and as long as they don't slot us at the same time, I will come watch you speak.
Oh,
I'm
thank you.
looking forward to that.
Yeah.
You again were such a big supporter of my talk last year. And yeah, so just excited to go back, hear you speak. And I love the correlation. I mean, I think that what you're building, what you're speaking on is really that reflection of the internal culture outward, right? And how it affects multiple stakeholders for CCS, right? Like it's your distributors seeing your culture, your customers are seeing it. Like it's everybody seeing that culture, and that's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome. So let's look to the future a little bit, Emily. What excites you about the future of manufacturing, machine vision, computational imaging, all of that kind of fun stuff? What's exciting to you about what the future holds?
Um, Technology wise, I I am curious to see what AI can do. I think there was like a lot of hype when AI first, started appearing in machine vision, and I think um maybe it was like overhyped as as so often happens, or at least at the time.
Sure.
And I remember hearing at a trade show talk once that kind of like curve of expectations where it, just like goes way over what is realistic, but then it kind of like goes back down and then plateaus to like what is actually capable with this new technology, which is, you can't deny that it's like, revolutionary or game changing, but um there's again like overestimating
Yeah.
how much it can do. Because I think, especially in the beginning, there were, a group of machine vision AI companies that um, we were, consulting with on projects, and it was kind of funny because the language at the time in the industry was like, certain like things like lighting are going to be like less important um, once AI, you know, because of AI, because it'll be able to, um, perform better, even if your lighting is bad or
Yeah.
not as great. But then, if that was the case, then why are these AI companies still coming to us to talk about projects? Um, and so, that was maybe a couple of years ago, and 10 years on, who knows? It will, that future they talked about might happen, but for now,
Yeah.
it's still important, and maybe it'll still be, um, important 10 years from now. So we'll see.
Got it. Roger that. Um, what's the future of marketing look like, especially when it comes to industrial marketing?
The future of industrial marketing is it's interesting because I feel like the industry is still quite behind. Like the things that B2B SaaS, for example, was talking about, 5 years ago during the pandemic is like
Yes,
not common knowledge
for
in
sure.
the industrial manufacturing space. Um, and, you know, so we're going to have to catch up, and hopefully, in the midst of that, we won't necessarily go in like mis like we'll learn from the I don't want to say mistakes of B2B SaaS, for example, but things they kind of like believed in and has, since realized, oh, maybe, that it was like the wrong perspective or a distorted perspective. And hopefully we can, look at that and say, oh, let's skip that part of the journey and just
Yeah.
go straight to where, things work well for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll take time, I think, because, I people still need to learn like what marketing is. It's not just like trade shows and brochures and making sure that that checklist is done every year. Uh,
Yeah.
if you want to like really grow your business in a way that's financially efficient, um, it takes a lot more than that, and you have to really dig into figuring out what's the right way to do that for your business.
And I think, I mean, along those points, I think a lot of companies really don't know what marketing is, right? Because they'll have a team of one or a small team,
Yeah,
and they'll ask them to do SEO and build websites and do branding, and all of those things are really specialized. I mean, and so
yeah,
it's wild when they have these small teams and they're like, do marketing, right?
yeah, pretty much. Exactly. It's funny because, to your point, like we're a small marketing team ourselves, and I, look at companies who just have like an SEO specialist or a social media specialist, or like breaking out people for those specific roles, and it's like we're doing it all over here, which can be, the fun of it, right? Is you get to
Yeah.
experience everything.
But yeah, I mean, I even see it with the content creators, the podcasters in the industrial space, right?
Yeah,
Megan has her like thing that she does really well. She's a great technical writer, right? Chris does his thing that he does really well, and Jake does, and Eddie Saunders and Jacob Sanchez and Ann Wyatt. I mean, they all have their things that they do really well. Emily
yeah,
Wilkins builds badass brands, right? Um, and I hope that people who see that dynamic in the industry and see us all working together understands that we're able to work together because we complement each other, right? And that's what I think a lot of these industrial brands need is more complementary roles within their organization. Am I onto something there, or am I just like really exhausted on a Halloween day?
uh I guess define complimentary for you.
Well, so like I know my skill set is getting people comfortable answering questions, right? Conducting interviews, networking, talking. Um, Jake does something totally different. We do something similar, but he does something totally different. Tony Gunn does something similar, but totally
Yeah.
different. We all complement each other. But then when it comes to like technical writing, that is not my skill set. And that's why I will reach out to a Megan. If somebody says, hey, I'd like this technical blog written, I'll be like, I don't do that, but I know somebody who does, right? If they say, hey, I want to throw a really cool event, hey, that's not my skill set. I know somebody who does that, right? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I mean by that.
Sure. I mean, when your company is big enough, I can definitely see that happening, but there's, so many small to mid-sized manufacturers who probably, need marketing the most, and that, understandably isn't feasible. From there
Sure.
is kind of, finding who within the organization is, ready and willing to step up and owning like certain parts of that process. It doesn't have to be everything necessarily.
Right.
Even within our marketing team, my coworker, the technical marketing manager, was one of our engineers before transitioning to marketing. So in a lot of ways, her specialty is like you know recording all of her technical knowledge in a conversation, and from there, you know I'll take it into the written form.
Sure.
for example. And sometimes it's not her, it's one of our engineers who is stepping into that role. Um, so they don't have to like write the blog post, so to speak, but
Yeah.
they need to, give us 30 minutes to talk about whatever. Um, so, who who can, like essentially what are you going to need to make something happen, and like what can you do versus what can somebody else help you with. And sometimes if there's nobody, you kind of have to either like come up with a like lower quality version or decide, as a company, let's not go this route because we can't
Yeah.
put out something of value.
I like it. Emily, what impact do you want to leave on the industry, on CCS, on the next generation of marketers, industrial marketers that come behind you? What's the impact you want to leave?
Oh, I hope there will be like, a greater understanding of what marketing is, that's more widespread in the industry, hopefully. But I know it's hard. I was, reading a book a while back about, data in, the English soccer league, the Premier League,
Okay.
and how that was like introducing that into the league was very difficult because it seemed like a new age thing, to, a bunch of, older, men set in their ways. And I saw a lot of parallels to that, to industrial marketing, funny enough, where marketing can kind of be seen as this like new age or silly thing that should just be like left in the corner to do whatever on the computer.
Yeah.
But when can bring it into your, to higher level decisions the right way, then, you identify opportunities that you could take advantage of because your competitors aren't taking advantage of them because they don't know anything about marketing. So they're not playing in those spaces yet. And you can just, establish yourself early on.
Got it. I like it. Emily, last question I ask every single one of my guests. What haven't we talked about that you want to talk about?
Uh I guess one thing, we got to talking because like we were in the middle of like trying to change our company culture to, be um like capable of taking on that, you know scary challenge. And part of like, or one of the like big moments for us was reading this certain book called Our Iceberg is Melting. And it's a business book, believe it or not, but
Okay.
it's about this colony of penguins who, um you know one of them discovers the iceberg is melting, like the iceberg they live on is melting, and they're going to have to, figure out a way to survive if it,
Yeah.
disappears, like they're going to lose their home. The un like scary but unknown problem or challenge, and kind of how that colony like works together to figure out a solution, to save themselves, basically. So you know um it started out with a couple of us reading it, and then, eventually it was like required reading for the whole company, because it was, I think it helped people develop in their mind, all right, like this is like we want to kind of follow the penguin's journey in,
Yeah.
broad phases. We want to like do what they did, but also it was like, a moment for each of us to reflect, like, oh, which character am I? Because like there's multiple penguins, and there's, the ones who are working to like solve the problem. There's like the penguin who says no to everything,
Yes.
because they just want to, always reject anything. um and the penguins who are excited to help, and the penguins who are like, less excited to help because they're scared about what that means in the future. And it was, I think everybody ended up like reflecting which penguin am I, or am I multiple penguins? And do you want to be, the one that's saying no to everything and making things difficult for everybody, or do you want to be, one of the ones that are contributing to the solution?
Yeah.
So if anybody, wants to read that, and go through a similar process within your own company, if you think you need it, it was, it was, I think, because it was just like this weird, like, business book that with a funny analogy, it was easy to like be skeptical about it at first. But again, once you read it, I think it like gave us all an opportunity to, shift our mindsets a little bit.
Yeah. It's a great book. I read it as part of my MBA program where I learned
Yeah.
more about defining culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until you brought it up, I had totally forgotten about the book, but it's a good book. And I tend to like the books that are written the business books that are written in that kind of fable format.
Yeah.
The Patrick Lencioni, The Iceberg is Melting, Who Moved My Cheese is another good one, right?
Yeah. It's storytelling, right? And humans
is.
function or like understand the world through storytelling.
Absolutely. Emily, there's so much that we could do from that last statement, but I'm going to kind of let it dangle there as far as storytelling is concerned. What I think we need to do, Emily, is I think we need to have CCS on the Manufacturing Connector show to talk about the technology and on the YouTube channel and really get a better understanding of how that technology can help change some of the facilities that we go into every day. How's that sound?
For sure. Totally. Well,
All
we'll
right.
talk later.
All right. Well, Emily, on that note, thank you so much for being a guest today. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. I also had a good time, and we'll definitely see each other in person at IMS next year.
Absolutely. Oh, last question.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Are you dressing up? Because today is Halloween. Do you have a costume?
No, I don't know how this will come off. It might sound really snooty, but I really struggle to buy things that you can only use like once a year. Like for me, it has to be something you can, use like for multiple months in a year, or like the whole year. So I like can't bring myself to buy a costume that I essentially will only wear one time. It like really bothers me, so I can't do it. I don't really have any party to go to anyway, so no opportunity to wear it either.
Well, I don't think it's snooty. I think it's very grounded again. But ladies and gentlemen, that's Emily Ting, like in a nutshell right there. So thank you, Emily. Have a great rest of your day.
You may be thinking, why do I need to attend Med Device Boston? Because you're going to do more than browse. You'll build your pipeline. You'll see, you'll touch, and you'll engage with innovative solutions from 200 plus suppliers while participating in hands-on workshops, expert-led education sessions, and curated matchmaking, all engineered to accelerate your projects. Whether you're solving design, regulatory, or production challenges, Med Device gives you key conversations, timely insights, and the tools to move forward. Med Device Boston. Advance your pipeline, advance your network, advance what's next.